Hello everybody, here comes a review of price control. So we're going to take a look at something called price ceiling and something called price floor. Okay, so before we start this discussion, let's make sure that we remember that the starting point here is supply and demand model, which implies, as we know, perfect competition. And as you might recall, under such circumstances, when you have perfect competition, market's supposed to bring us to the point of allocative efficiency. So supply, demand. Supply here represents marginal cost, demand represents marginal benefit. So this market wants to be at this point for an equilibrium. So here quantity demanded meets quantity supplied, and this is the equilibrium price. And even more than that, because supply curve represents marginal cost, demand curve represents marginal benefit, at this point we are achieving the point of allocative efficiency. Marginal benefit meets marginal cost, so this point also happens to be the point of allocative efficiency, which also means that we are maximizing total surplus. Remember this triangle? That's our total surplus, which of course could be split in consumer surplus and producer surplus, but we don't need to go into those details now. So total surplus is the largest. And so because we're already in the point of allocative efficiency, clearly trying to make things any better will do no good. In fact, we'll see that by trying to make things better, in fact, is likely to make things worse. So, price ceiling. Price ceiling. What is price ceiling? Price ceiling is the highest price that is allowed to be charged at the market. So the highest price that can be charged for a good. So highest is the key here. So if you look at your axis for price, then if this is your price ceiling, then it means that you can charge up to this price. So any lower price will be fine, and actually this price itself will be fine. But anything above will be illegal. So if this is like $10 per unit, then charging 11 will put you in trouble. So $11 is not good. $9 is fine. 8 as well. So anything up to $10 will be fine. So let's see how this restriction, because in fact it's a restriction on price, is going to affect market equilibrium. So in fact, one important thing to notice is that if price ceiling is set above market equilibrium, then it will have no effect. Because like if this is your supply, this is your demand, so market wants to be at this point for an equilibrium, right? So if you say that, okay, price ceiling must be here, so price should not go above like this level, for example. And so what? We know that everything below is fine, so and this is where the market wants to be. So market wants to be in the legal area, so nothing will really change. Market will just stay where it wanted to stay to begin with. So to notice any differences from introduction of a price ceiling, we need to put it below the current equilibrium price. So let's put it here. So price ceiling. So in this case, like, government will be trying to push price down from P asterisk to P hat. And well, if it succeeds in doing this, what will happen? First of all, there will be a mismatch between quantity supplied and quantity demanded, right? Because this price, which is lower than the price of equilibrium, will reduce quantity supplied, right? It will discourage producers, because producers do not like low prices, but it actually will encourage consumers, so they will be demanding more. And that's actually was the initial equilibrium quantity. And that actually will result in a shortage. So this difference will be a shortage. So usually shortage results in increase in price, but because there is a legal restriction on price, it won't be happening. So we will have this chronicle, continual shortage. What else will happen? Actually, another thing we can notice here is that quantity, in fact, will reduce. So it will go from initial quantity here to this one, to reduce quantity. So out of these two numbers, QS and QD, QS actually is the one that matters, because that is how much is going to be brought to the market, so that's how much is being produced, and that's how much is being consumed. Consumers are not able to get this much. They are demanding that much, right? But they're not getting it. So the number that actually matters is this one, which means that effectively production will go down, consumption will go down, right? So all this quantity will go out of production and consumption. So this quantity will be a reduction in production and consumption. Remember, it's not the size of shortage. It's the difference between of how much was produced and consumed in an equilibrium and how much is being produced and consumed in this new situation. Hopefully you guys recall that if such thing happens, then we have a deadweight loss, right? Because again, like, the overall total surplus could be as large as this much, right? But to capture this total surplus, we actually need to produce all units for which marginal benefit exceeds marginal cost. Remember, this is marginal cost. This is marginal cost curve. This is marginal benefit curve. Marginal benefit. So for every unit starting from here and all the way to here, to this point where marginal benefit meets marginal cost, marginal benefit exceeds marginal cost. So by producing and consuming every unit up to this point, we actually are generating total surplus. If some of these units are taken out of production and consumption, what's happening is that we're actually losing this area of total surplus because, we're not producing and consuming those units. And this is what we call deadweight loss. All right, how to calculate this deadweight loss? I hope you remember. You just take the base of this triangle, which is this, and multiply it by its height, which is this, or it's Q asterisk minus QS, and then you divide it by 2, this product by 2, and that will give you the area of deadweight loss. So it's height times base divided by 2. There is more than that. In fact, there's something called losses from search. To figure out losses from search, you just need to calculate an area of a rectangle that is adjacent to a deadweight loss triangle. So this side of your deadweight loss triangle will tell you where that rectangle for losses from search is. So you just go from this point, just draw a horizontal line, and here you go. You have your rectangle which shows losses from search activity. All right, the search occurs because, well, we have this chronicle shortage, so some people constantly would be looking for this good, because if you get lucky and find it, then, well, you actually get some surplus. All right, so that should be it, I think, here. So two critical areas here. The area for deadweight loss, this one, resulting from price ceiling, and the area for losses from search, which is this area. All right, so this is about price ceiling. Now, let's talk about price floor. Price floor is the opposite of price ceiling. So in fact, it's the lowest price. So it's the lowest limit imposed on price. The lowest price that can be paid for a good in a market. So the classical example of price floor is the minimum wage. So wage is just price of labor. So generally speaking, is the minimum price that businesses can pay to workers when buying their labor, buying their time and skills. So, in fact, before we go there, let's look at the price axis to see how it works. So if this is your price and this is your price floor, then everything above this price, so this price and everything above, will be okay. But anything below will be illegal, because that sets the lowest limit, lowest price. So illegal. Now let's look at a supply and demand diagram to see how it works. So we're talking about minimum wage. So generally speaking, this is price, but to be exact, it's wages. Generally speaking, this is quantity, but specifically it's labor. And if this is demand and this is supply, supply, which is marginal cost, demand, which is marginal benefit. So again, with no intervention, this is our equilibrium quantity, this is equilibrium price. Now, again, just like in the previous case, not every price floor is going to make a difference, because if you put it too low, right, like this, then, well, the equilibrium price actually will be in the legal zone, right? So nothing will actually change. Markets would be where they want to be, and government will be happy as well. So to not notice any difference, we need to consider a price floor which is above, set above the equilibrium price. So in this case, government will be kind of trying to lift the current price or current wages. So P hat. And as before, we're going to see a mismatch between quantity demanded, which is now on the right side, right, and quantity supplied, which is now on the left side. So instead of having a shortage, we will have actually excess supply. Supply as quantity supplied actually exceeds quantity demanded, which is here. Actually, one important thing we need to keep in mind is that at this kind of market, we're talking about market for resource, not consumer goods. So demand actually in this case represented not by consumers but by businesses. So businesses acting as buyers. And supply is represented by workers. Now, so as price is pushed up artificially high, it means that businesses now want to buy less of it, less of labor, right? So that's why quantity demanded actually drops. And workers are actually encouraged by higher wages, so more people are interested in getting this kind of job, so quantity supplied increases. And that results in this excess supply. Another way to look at it actually would be to say that we have shortage of jobs. But let's actually stick to talking about excess supply of labor. So if we're actually focusing on labor, that's the way to look at it. All right, so next thing, similarly again to the previous diagram, we can notice that out of these two numbers, QD and QS, the one that actually matters is QD, because this is how much businesses are willing to hire, right? So this number is not really fulfilled. Quantity supplied, it's how many workers want to get jobs, right? But eventually what matters is how many of them really get jobs, which means that we have an effective decrease in employment, right? So from having Q asterisk workers or Q asterisk L, we will go down to QD. So that these workers actually will be out of jobs. So there will be a reduction in employment. And this reduction, in fact, is going to reduce total surplus because, again, remember, given this supply and demand curves, the highest surplus we can get is this triangle. But as we're taking some workers out of the picture, we are eliminating some of the total surplus. And that results in what we call deadweight loss. Okay. Next thing is to see how large losses from search will be. Similar idea as before. As people look for jobs, it takes time, takes resources, right? So that will result in losses. To figure out how much these losses could be, we need to draw a rectangle that is adjacent to our deadweight loss triangle. So this is this side of our, or actually base of our deadweight loss triangle. So if you draw a rectangle adjacent to it, just like that, you will have an estimate of losses from search. That will occur if there is a price floor imposed on wages in this case. All right, so I think this is it. And well, it took me basically 20 minutes to do this, but that's it takes what it takes. So here we go. Thank you for your time. I hope it was helpful. I'll talk to you next time.